Welcome back to Wise Words. I did change the name because I feel like it just flows better. I may change it again, I don't know, but thank you so much for being here this week. It's just me, obviously, because today I need to have a real conversation with myself, really. But I've noticed a lot of people recently are talking about how they are so afraid to be a parent and they don't know if they want to be one. I also have noticed a lot of people just saying they are struggling being a parent. And so the purpose of this video is to inform and help parents, really. But if you're not a parent, all of these things can be applied to just life in general or relationships in general. And obviously I can only talk from my own perspective. And it sucks that I have to say that every time. But if I don't, people will attack me like, well, you don't know what it's like to be a working mom or struggle financially. And it's like, first of all, I'm not going to go into my past, but there's a lot more to my life that nobody knows, nobody will ever know. And you just have to believe me, I guess. And I acknowledge that other people exist and I'm one of a kind and my circumstance is not everyone's. I can't go into another person's brain and then share their perspective to you guys. So I'm doing what everyone else can do. Anyone can do this. Anyone can come on here and share their perspective. I highly encourage that. And the first thing we're going to get into, well, first of all, I want to talk about, a lot of times people ask me, like, where do you get all this information from? Like, where are you pulling this shit out of, honestly? And I guess I really don't even know sometimes. It's just like, it's a natural thing. I've always been a person that's really good with kids. Like, before I became a mom, I'm always that person to go into a room and take the baby or obviously ask the mom first. You know what I mean? I loved kids way before I was a mom. Literally my whole life, I've dreamed of being a mom. And I think that's important to say because I think a lot of people don't feel that way and then they think that they're gonna be like such a happy person when they become a parent. And then I forgot to mention, oh, I've also always wanted to be a mom and I love kids my whole life. And they're like, oh, goddamn, like I'm pregnant, Julie, and you just maybe want to have a kid because your baby's so cute. I feel like I'm a chronic observer. So I have been observing everybody my whole life, and I'm 27, so I feel like I have 27 years, quote unquote, of observation. A lot of times I'll come on and make a video about like a psychological method you can use on your kids, and then people will comment, oh, that's actually a real thing called blah, blah, blah. And I really have no idea. Like, I had no idea that was a real thing. So it's just things I picked up along the way, and I don't think I'm special. I think that this is actually the only thing I have, honestly. I don't think I'm a better mom than anyone. I'm always learning from other moms. Like that's where I get this information from. I'm observing, right? So I hate the narrative that I think I'm better than, because this is always coming from a place of I've been there and I'm trying to help. And I have a really soft spot for parents because I get it. It was really, really hard for me. And long before TikTok, I have been talking about how hard it was in the beginning for me. And I've kind of been obsessed with how do I make this the easiest possible experience, like being a parent, because I don't want my life to be hard, because being a parent is your life, right? A lot of people are observers, but I think there's two different types of observers. There's people that observe and feel, like they let their observations affect them emotionally, and there's people that observe and it doesn't affect them at all. I am one of those people that I can observe without feeling anything. And I think that lets me observe things more literally. Like, I'm not an empath. Like Jay, he is such an empath. I think my sister is one too. Like, she can like go in a room and feel their people's sadness and then she gets all sad. I can notice they're sad, but it doesn't bother me, it doesn't affect me at all. Anyway, so the first thing I want to talk about is that viral video of a mom saying that she made her dream in life being a mom. She specifically wanted a daughter and a husband that loved her, whatever. And she got all that. She got a daughter and a husband, and it is not what she thought it was. And she regrets making being a mom her dream. And quote unquote, she said, being a parent is the most draining experience of your life. And that's where I stopped the video, honestly. It's like, if you want to say it's the most draining experience of your life, then go ahead. That's your truth. I believe you. But don't put that on other people. Like, don't try to scare. It felt like so many people watched that and were like, I'm so afraid that that's going to be me and I'm never going to be a parent. And I don't like that, honestly, because I think she's an outlier, first of all. And from the sounds of it, it sounded like she had a baby. Like, maybe not even one yet, honestly, because I didn't look into her page. I should have. But I can just tell from the whining I heard in the background, the kid was no older than the age of 2. So that's my first big red flag is you're still in the hardest part. And the first 2 years are not an accurate representation of being a parent at all. And I think she spoke too soon. I think that I would be curious to hear her thoughts in like 2 years. And she's just going on about how she gets no time alone and she has to wipe butts and hear crying every 5 seconds. And she only has one kid too. I'm like, damn, like she is really going through it. And I feel really bad for her. But I also kind of gathered from that video that there was more to her mental health than she's admitting. Like, I feel that she has other problems and she's kind of blaming it all on being a mom. And I think that's something that nobody really talks about, is a lot of parents will come on TikTok and be like, I'm just having a hard time, being a mom is so hard and I'm so sad. And I totally believe them. I completely understand. But what nobody thinks about is you don't know what your alternative would be. You don't know what your life would be like if you weren't a mom. You don't know if you would be happy. Just because it could be different doesn't mean it could be better. And that's exactly what this mom is assuming, that she would just be so much happier if she wasn't a mom. We don't know that. And that belief alone could be preventing her from being happy and enjoying her life. And like I said, the first 2 years are very hard. And once they turn like 2.5, 3, is when you can start doing the things you want to do while they are around. Because you don't realize that the first 2 years you can't really do the things you want to do unless they're sleeping or they have a babysitter, right? So you kind of have to squeeze all your me time when they're not around. But eventually, when they are awake, you can get ready and do your hair and makeup and take a shower. Or you can, go outside and do lawn work while they're playing in the driveway on their bike. I honestly didn't even think of that. When Jay was 2, I was like, I have to squeeze all my me time into his nap time forever. Because you guys know me, I don't believe in the future. So I was just convinced and I accepted it. And when it happened, it was like, what the hell? This is so easy. Like, he's just awake and I can just go take a shower and I don't have to rush. Like, he can keep himself alive for like 10 minutes. It was a game changer. And now that he's 6, he's like a fucking full-grown man out here and life is good. I mean, I do have a 1-year-old, but because I have a 6-year-old, he's also like a third parent sometimes. Not that I ever put the pressure on him to watch her, but I do know if I need to step away, like go to the bathroom, that they're gonna play together and I really don't have to rush. And I do know if she were to get hurt or if she was about to get hurt, Jay would yell out to me. And it's just, oh my God, it's a game changer. This woman also was talking about, back to the reference of the video, she was saying all these things and I had to stop the video because it was just so negative. And this is not shading her. I just don't want to feel, I don't want to put her thoughts in my head because I'm also a mom and I need to protect my mind. And I do believe that the words you speak are your reality. I'm a believer in the law of attraction, okay? And she's also a stay-at-home mom, and that's a whole nother thing, and I want to get into that in a second. So honestly, I think a lot of her problems would be solved if she just simply stopped saying how draining and sad being a mom is. Like, I just feel like she's speaking her words into existence, and I think she should address the other problems going on in her head, because I just gathered that from the video. Well, we need to talk about being a stay-at-home mom, okay? Because the world wants to punch you in the face when you say being a stay-at-home mom is hard. And honestly, so I've been a stay-at-home mom for 6 years. I feel like I got it down, but it took me a while to get here. And like everything else in my life, I'm obsessed with figuring out, why is being a stay-at-home mom hard? Because nobody can seem to put it into words. And I've tried my best to do that here on my notes, and I want to share. Because a lot of times you'll hear moms say, or even dads say, going to work feels like a break. Being a working parent is so much easier than being a stay-at-home mom. And that is so fascinating to me because in my head, I've never been a working mom, but I feel like that would be so much harder, mostly because I have a control thing. Like I feel like I need to control Jay and Rose's life, honestly, right now because they're just so small. And I also have this extreme fear of drifting apart from them. That's due to my own personal reasons, but I just feel like the second I'm not close with them is the second things are gonna go wrong. So I am obsessed with feeling close to them, and I just feel like the more time apart we have, the greater the chances that we drift. But the majority of parents seem to say that going to work is easier. So I wrote down things that work has that stay-at-home mom doesn't have. So the working parent has start and a finish time, breaks, pay, incentives, and adult interaction. So all of these things mentally, I feel, make it so much easier for the working parent. What you can do is kind of incorporate these things into your life as a stay-at-home parent. For example, start, finish time. Obviously, you can't really do that. You can't really clock out of being a parent. But what you can do is kind of say, okay, we're gonna eat for 20 minutes, and then we're gonna play with blocks for 30 minutes, and then we're gonna go outside for an hour, and then we're gonna eat lunch for 30 minutes, and kind of split up your day in timestamps, because otherwise it can feel like a never-ending doom feeling, and your day is just all blended together, and it feels like it goes on forever and ever. And I find that splitting things up and having a time limit, even just a few times a day, like we're gonna play in the playroom for 30 minutes. It helps so much. It gives you a little bit of structure. Now breaks, obviously we can't just take a break from parenting whenever we want. There are naps, they're unpredictable, you don't know how long your break is, but they're amazing. But I'm talking like breaks from just being away from your children. Now whatever you can do. A lot of people have some sort of person they can let, whether it's your husband or your wife, set up a break at least once a month where you go and you do your own thing. So you always have a break to look forward to. Ideally, it would be once a week, but if you don't have that luxury, once a month, because just knowing that a break is coming up will make your life easier. And because a lot of times when you're at work, the only thing getting you through the day is your break and then the fact that you get to leave. So having that in your life as a stay-at-home mom will mentally make it easier for you. Like, for example, you know you're getting your nails done at 3 o'clock and you're a stay-at-home mom. The whole day just feels so much easier, just knowing you're getting that break at the end of the day. Obviously, most of us can't do something like that every day, but just having it at the end of the week or twice a month, just something to give you something to look forward to, where you just don't have to be a parent for a few hours. Now, pay. Stay-at-home moms do not get pay. And this is something that you're either gonna have to come to terms with and fully accept and let it go. You and your husband or your boyfriend, that should be looked at as both of your money, because you are staying home, allowing your partner to work and provide, and you're saving so much money on childcare. A lot of people have a hard time letting go of the fact that they don't have their own money. And if you feel like you just can't let that go, you need something, then you could always watch another kid, babysit, be a nanny, flip stuff on Facebook Marketplace, even if it's just a little bit. I watched a kid when Jay was a baby. He was also, I watched another baby, and it was like, the pay was like nothing. It was only like $200 a week, but it gave me just enough to feel like I can contribute a little bit. You know, when birthdays and Christmas came around, I felt very weird buying Sean something with his own money, even though there is nothing wrong with that, okay? The next factor we have here is incentives. There seems like there's no incentives being a stay-at-home parent, but there is. You just have to look really hard for them. I think the biggest incentive is just creating memories. Even if your kid's not old enough, you get to cherish these memories forever. It can seem like there's no point in putting all this effort to like go outside in the snow or go for a walk, packing the stroller and the diapers and the formula. It just seems like a lot of effort, and you're like, what's the incentive here? Like, if I do it, nothing happens. If I don't do it, nothing happens, right? But the memories for yourself. And I'm telling you right now, if you put in maximum effort into your kids as much as you can every day, the biggest incentive is that they're going to be happy and well behaved, and your life as a stay-at-home mom will be so much easier in a very short amount of time. The effort will not go unnoticed by yourself, really. You're going to notice it in your day-to-day life. Your life's going to feel easier in 6 months if right now you sit down with them and you do flashcards and you sing songs and you read them stories and you put in all this effort. And you'd be surprised how it affects every part of their life when you do that. So really the incentive is making your life easier, honestly. And adult interaction. Now that's something that is very important to me. I am leaving the house all the time just to be in the presence of another adult. Because if I don't know, I forget. I tend to forget that my home is not the entire world. If I'm in it for too long, it literally starts to feel like this is the whole wide world, is my house. It's like a really weird mental thing. So even just stepping out and not even talking to another adult, but just being next to one and just being in a public setting, it literally changes my life. You don't have to spend money to go out either. I go to the library like multiple times a week and just read Rose books, Jay too, but he's at school half the day. And we go to story times, do the crafts, just walk around. They always have decorations we can look at. And Rose loves going to the library. If I even mention that word, she's like, yeah, library. It's had many benefits than I really thought of. Like, for example, it's taught her to interact with other kids, of course. I did expect that. There is a lot of other 2-year-olds, 1-year-olds there. And it's also taught her to be quiet in a public setting. It's also taught her to clean up when she's done before moving on to the next thing, because they do have toys at most libraries, and there's signs everywhere like clean up after you're done. So obviously I'm not going to ignore those, and I clean up after she's done, and she helps me, but a lot of times she does it on her own now before moving on because it's just a habit, and she actually does it at home too. And it's something that I am so bad at. Like, if they want to take out blocks, we'll take out blocks. And then if they want to go in the living room and take out magnets, we'll do that before putting away the blocks. And then things add up and it gets messy. But cleaning up right after you're done, the library taught me to do that. It's a game changer. Yeah, just leaving the house. Leave the goddamn house, okay? And a lot of people will say, get dressed every day and do your makeup every day and you'll feel so much better as a stay-at-home mom. And yes, I do agree, but it's only on a surface level. Like, yeah, you're gonna feel good, but really, it's not actually fixing anything. What you really need to do, if you're a stay-at-home mom, the thing about it is it's all in your head, okay? Your reality and your kids' reality is heavily depending on your brain, on your mentality. And if you have a bad mentality, it's going to show in every aspect of your life. So if you feel like you can't get it down, that was me. I would cry every day. I would feel worthless. I felt I needed validation. I was seeking it from elsewhere. Like, I wanted Sean to notice that I swept the floor and I did the dishes and I cleaned up and I look so put together right now, but he would just come home and he wouldn't really notice much, obviously, because yeah, okay, I did the dishes and everything, but they were done before he left and I made the mess and then I cleaned it. You know what I mean? So it's very difficult for your partner to notice all the work that you do. And you have to validate yourself. You have to stop seeking outside validation. It's never coming. You have to have a firm belief in your head and never forget it. I am important. My job matters. Those two things you need to believe, like actually believe. And I'm gonna link a video here on how to train your brain. There's a TED Talk that I listened to multiple times now, and it's just incredible. Next thing I wanna do is share what I feel about being a mom, because she shared her truth, and I'm gonna be real honest with you guys. I also believe that I am an outlier too. I believe that being a mom is easier than not being a mom for me. Because before I became a mom, guys, I was so lost. That's the only word I can really describe how I felt all the time. I always had this feeling like I was, quote unquote, in trouble. Like, I never knew what I was doing is what I should be doing. And I just felt uneasy, like subconsciously all the time. And I hated I hated the feeling, and the only way I can describe it is loss, but I feel like that's not really the correct word. But the second I had Jay, the feeling went away. For the first time in my life, I knew exactly where I should be and exactly what I should be doing. And Jay gave me a sense of comfort. Like, he was just somebody that I could start over with. Like, he could get to know me exactly for who I am, and he's not going to know about anything. Like, whatever I was doing before I was a mom doesn't matter anymore. I have a fresh start, and now he's 6 years old, and I feel like he knows me in a very different way than everyone in my life, because I got to show him the parts I wanted to show him, and he brought out the best parts of me that I didn't even know existed. And you'll ask anyone in my life, I totally changed when I became a mom. I also kind of feel like I wasn't really living until I started living for someone else, because I was just a very selfish person. I didn't think of other people. And the second I became a mom, everything changed. Like, the way I looked at the world literally shifted. Like, the angle I was coming from shifted. And I was like, oh, goddamn, other people are real, and it's not just me out here. And unfortunately for me, that's just the only way I could have done that. I don't think that's everyone. I think most people are normal and believe that they're not the center of the fucking world, but unfortunately, that was just me. And honestly, Jay and Rose, they are, I feels like I've known them forever and ever and ever and ever. And they're like, I look at their little faces and they just comfort me in a way that no one else in the whole wide world could do. I can cry talking about it, honestly. I'm not gonna do that, that's embarrassing. Well, next thing I wanna talk about here is, so I have a 2-year-old and a 6-year-old. Well, okay, that's a lie. Rose is 1 still. She's 22 months to be exact. Real quick, I just wanna share the thing that's working best right now with Rose to get her to listen to me is I do this thing where I praise her behavior before she does it. And for example, I say, Rosie, can you come get your shoes on? We're gonna go to the store. And she looks at me for like a split second. She's deciding if she should run away or listen to me. And in that split second, I say, thank you so much for listening to me. Thank you so much for getting your shoes on. And she's like 80% more likely to just get her shoes on because she sees how happy I am and how proud I am of her. And she just feels compelled to listen to me. With Jay, he needs incentives. Right now, he needs incentives to listen, because he's a very good boy, but the only thing with Jay is he will literally ignore us. Like, he just won't hear us talk, even though I know he hears. He just chooses to not listen sometimes. So we like to give him incentives, and it reminds him to listen, and it works really well. And another thing that I wanted to mention here, because I think I read this on Facebook like 10 years ago or something, and it has stuck in my brain ever since. I'm starting to use it with Jay. And that is to not put down the behaviors you want to see from someone else. And that might be obvious, like, of course, why would I ever do that? But people actually do this all the time. For example, your teenager comes out of their room and you say, whoa, you must want something. Like, why are you sitting in the living room? Like, what are you doing? Or your husband takes out the trash without you asking. And you're like, wow, you actually remembered for the first time in a month. And you don't realize you're doing it, but you're putting down something that you actually want. So therefore, they're actually not likely to do it again. We think that just because we acknowledge it, that we're praising it, but we're not. We're just putting it down. The words do matter. I remember being a teenager and I wanted to be better. Like, I really did. I was a very problematic teenager, but I continued in my patterns of misbehaving and being rude and backtalking because I knew I would be met with those comments of, whoa, you're being a little too nice. Like, what do you want? You must want something, or what's going on with Julie? It sucks because I really wanted to be better, but I was just kind of sticking with the label that was put on me. And I also just didn't want anyone to acknowledge it at all. Like, a lot of times people will continue to even just wear the same things they wear because they know that if they wear something different, like something that's so out of their comfort zone, that someone's gonna point it out. And they simply just don't want it to be pointed out. And so you have to be able to recognize the difference between when it's better to praise the person versus when it's better to not say anything at all. Because sometimes people just don't want to hear the comment at all. And I know that can definitely be applied to teenagers. So another thing I want to talk about here is the 4-year age gap because a lot of people want to know how far apart should I have my kids. And obviously I only have 2 kids. I can't really compare this age gap to anything else. So it's hard for me to give an accurate opinion on this. But my conclusion here is that the smaller the age gap you have, the harder it's going to be. But it's going to be a shorter amount of time that you have to struggle, honestly, because you have to split yourself in half when you have a second child. Because even if you have a 1-year age gap, reality is your newborn is not going to be doing anything that your 1-year-old is doing. So you either have to split yourself in half, or your family has to be split, like one parent goes with one, the other parent goes with the other. And then slowly you guys come back together as the second child grows. So we have a 4-year age gap, and now Rose is almost 2, and they're just starting to be able to kind of do the same things, because Rose can talk now, and that's been a game changer for Jay. So it's taken 2 years for them to kind of be on the same level, but reality is Jay can do so much more stuff than Rose. He's 6. Like when Jay wants to go snowboarding, I have to stay back with Rose, whereas if we had Rose a year after Jay, that we could all do that together. So you have to really pick your battles here. I feel like spreading them out has made it easier overall, but it's been harder for longer. You know what I mean? Now, I personally love the 4-year age gap because I got to spend 4 years with me and Jay. And I think that benefited our family way more than I realized up until now. Like the time and energy I put into Jay, it shows. And it actually is kind of trickles down to Rose, because he is so solid. And he's such a good boy, and Rose learns from him. And if I didn't get that time with him, and if I had them back to back, then she wouldn't have that. It's like a third parent almost, because she can learn what the right thing is to do even when I'm not around, and it shows through Rose's behavior. And a lot of people notice that Rose's speech is really good and that she acts like very old for her age. And I think that it has to do with Jay. Yes, I do. Because the thing about Jay actually taught me something very interesting. This 4-year age gap really taught me like a whole new perspective of parenting, because so Jay obviously wants to play with Rose, but she's 2, not even 2, and he's 6. So he will kind of treat her like he's only 6, so he doesn't understand where she's at developmentally. So he will treat her like she's like a 3 or a 4-year-old, and he will expect her to act like one, honestly. And she actually surprises me all the time with the things that she will do. For example, I actually made a video of Jay he built this magnet tower, and Rose was like a year and a half, like literally 18 months, and he trained her to not knock down that tower. And it stayed up for, I think, 5 months or something like that. And I would never expect that from her. She's 18 months old. She's gonna knock things over. That's what a normal parent would expect. But since he doesn't understand that, and he doesn't give a shit about that, honestly, he just gives a shit about his tower, he literally trained her, and it worked. And that blew my mind. And that's when I realized a lot of times kids act the way they act because they're just meeting their parents at their expectations. And like, for example, if you put 10 3-year-olds in one room, they're all going to be acting completely different, and they're all going to be at different stages developmentally. Why? Well, obviously they're all growing at different paces. I totally agree, that's half of it. But the other half, I believe that it's simply that all of their parents have different expectations for them, and their kids are just meeting them where they're at. A lot of times the behavior problems are simply just change your expectations. Like, a lot of parents of toddlers will say, well, they're toddlers, they're gonna knock this down, they're gonna hit, they're gonna bite, whatever, they're 2, terrible 2s. But if you really look into it, like developmentally, they are capable of so much more than we understand. And there's actually an app, it's called Baby Center, and every week it will give you an update on your toddler and where they're at developmentally, so you can literally know what you can and cannot expect from them. And they're capable of so much more than we give them credit for. And another example of this expectations thing is your kid being around their grandparents, right? You notice that they're different. It's because their grandparents have different expectations. They go to school and they act different. Their school has different expectations. I hope this makes sense, because I truly believe that half the battle is changing your expectations, and it's gonna take a lot of work. And a lot of times it can go the other way too. Like maybe you're expecting too much. Like, for example, kids developmentally don't understand sharing until they're 3. At least that's what I've read from professionals. And a lot of times parents will get so frustrated at like their 1-year-old or their 2-year-old for not sharing, and they'll punish them and they'll get so mad, but really their brains are not physically capable of it, so we shouldn't be punishing them for it. And maybe that's messing with their behavior. Maybe they're acting out because they're so frustrated that they can't understand this concept that their brain's literally not able to. So my advice for expectations is set them really high. I have extremely high expectations for Jay and Rose, and a lot of people might hear that and be like, well, that's really dangerous. They're gonna have anxiety or something, but they're not unrealistic. I know the difference between unrealistic and just high. Like an example of a high expectation versus an unrealistic is you're not allowed to have any emotions because we're out in public at a restaurant. You're not allowed to cry, you're not allowed to get angry. That's unrealistic. People have emotions and things happen. But what is not okay is you can't be screaming, you can't be hitting, and you can't be yelling. You need to control your emotions. That's a high expectation, especially for like a 2-year-old, but I just won't allow it. And a lot of people would be like, well, that's nice, Julie. Like, well, not everyone has a fucking 2-year-old that listens. And I get it, but the thing about the way I look at toddler life is home is the practice and the public is the test. So if my kid is acting out at a restaurant or wherever we are at the store, that just means I need to do some more work at home. And it's not a big deal to me, but I will simply just leave anywhere I am. I can't have my kid hitting or throwing a tantrum in public. I just need to leave. I need to leave, and then we can try this again. And it really just tells me, like I said, I need to do more at home. I need to do something. I need to fix this. Because I actually have heard the term acting out. Like, dissect what that really means. Your toddler's acting out. Really what it means is they're acting out what something is going on inside of them. So don't just look at it as they're just being bad or they're just terrible, terrible twos. No, there's always something more. There's always a way you can fix it. They're simply acting out something that's going on inside of their head. Just look at it like that, and it'll give you a little more sympathy for them. Another thing I wanted to address here is Rose's speech. So people have noticed she talks really good and she talks a lot, and I agree, she does. And it's hard to know, maybe that's just her, or maybe it is the things that I do. I think it's a combination of both, but I think a main factor here, and I just get ready to punch me in the face right now, she doesn't watch TV. Okay, I know people are fucking tired of hearing it. They really are. And I get it. Like, if I was a work from home mom and I came on my fucking phone and I heard me yapping about how my kid doesn't watch TV, I would probably block me too. I totally understand that my circumstance is unique. Like, I'm a stay-at-home mom, and Sean gets laid off in the wintertime because his work doesn't work in the snow. So we have used this time to always split up ourselves for Rose, and we have been able to not let her watch TV, and that is how I have allowed this to happen. When he did work in the summertime, in the fall, I would go most of the week without letting her watch it, but there are times where I would put it on, like maybe once or twice a week. So I wasn't able to completely do it, but now it's like there's no TV on at all. I'm trying to make it till she's 2, and I truly believe that this has made a huge difference in her speech, because that's really the only thing I feel like I do different from other parents, other than just talking to her all the time. Because when you think about it, even if I let her watch 1 hour of TV a day, so that's 7 hours a week of me not interacting with her. Because let's be honest, when we put the TV on, we're probably not interacting with our kids, even though it's advised to sit there and supervise and interact and talk about what's going on. Parents don't do that. So that's 7 hours of interaction I'm taking away from her a week, and that's a huge difference. So she's getting 7 hours more than another kid would that watches TV for 1 hour a week. And I think that just because she's so young and her brain is developing so rapidly, those 7 hours make a huge difference. So the screens are a big thing. And another thing that I feel like I've done different with Rose than even with Jay is we sing a lot. Like just singing random songs all the time has really just, because what they say to do is talk to your kid all the time, like talk to your babies, and it'll help their speech. But when you sing, you make the talking way more intriguing and interesting. And I noticed that she listens more and she thinks it's way more fun, and she'll sing it back, and she learns so many words. And I say words that I normally wouldn't say in my regular real life vocabulary, because these songs are meant for kids and they have different words in it, you know what I mean? So it's expanded her vocabulary a ton. And she actually sings the songs back, and she makes up her own songs. And I just think singing is a big one. Put music on and sing with your kid. It's very easy and it's fun. And back to the screen thing, you know, one last time before you actually punch me in the face. There was a TikTok that I saw where a follower of mine actually, I didn't want to make the video because I didn't want anyone to attack this girl, because when I realized she followed me, I'm like, oh, she's a follower. And I love that. I totally respect her opinion, okay? But sometimes I was thinking, actually just right now, maybe this video was about me. But anyway, she made a video saying she thinks that kids that don't get any screen time or get limited screen time act like screens are crack when they do get to see a screen. And first of all, that's not true, in my circumstance at least. And I don't even know what she means by crack. Like, are they going up snorting their TV or something? Like, I don't know what that means. But if what she's trying to say is they sit and they pay attention and they watch it, like, a lot, like they're really focused on it, then of course, yes, they do that. And I think that's the whole point. I think we have lost the plot here with the screens, is we're so used to kids like eating and watching TV or playing with a toy and then looking at the screen and then looking away and playing with another toy and going in another room and coming back and then looking at the TV, when really the whole point is for them to be focused on it, right? So if acting like crack means she's just sitting and staring at the TV, then yes, I guess it's crack to her, because she does get to watch TV at her grandparents' house, and she goes there like once a week, sometimes once every other week, and I don't want them to do that, but I also am not going to tell them what to do in their own house. So actually, to my surprise, they put TV on like last week, we all went over there for dinner, and they put TV on, and she sat there and she watched a whole hour-and-a-half long movie, and I was shocked. I did not think she had that attention span, and I'm like, wow, this is actually amazing. So when I do introduce TV to her, she actually can sit down for an hour, and I can like clean for a whole hour. Like, that is a game changer. So that's something that I love that she likes the TV crack, or whatever the fuck you want to call it, because it's doing its job. It's actually intriguing her, and she's focused on it, and she's understanding the plot, and she's listening to the words. She's getting something out of the TV, because of course you can learn from TV. But when you're checking in and out and playing with your toy, how much are you really learning from the TV? I mean, I think that the whole point is to sit there and listen and learn. And the second, like, that's something I used to do with Jay when he was a baby. I introduced TV when he was like 10 months old, and I would be very limited, like 30 minutes a day. And then as he grew, I increased it. But if he stopped watching the TV and started playing with the toy, I would shut it off, because I hated that. Like, the whole point of the TV is you're gonna sit and you're gonna learn something, and I need to go get something done. Like, you need to be fully focused. And I just don't like TV as background noise. That's like a big pet peeve of mine, because like I said, I just think it defeats the entire purpose. So another thing I wanted to talk about here is, why is Jay not in my videos as much as he used to be? And this is something I wanted to mention because I think a lot of boy moms can relate to this. And that is, well, this was a shock for me, honestly. He is just kind of turning into a little man, and he doesn't want to spend every waking second with his mommy like he used to. He would much rather be in the garage with his dad, or he would rather be with his grandpa, or he'd rather be playing with friends, or playing with his plane or his trucks, or in his little office working on a craft, you know. He's just not a little toddler anymore that needs his mommy 24/7. And it's actually a big shock for me, because I didn't realize how much the gender really mattered when it came to having a kid. I just thought like all kids love their mommies, whatever. But he is just so much more interested in being around men because he identifies with men, obviously. And it sucks. Like, my role in his life has changed. It doesn't suck. I'm so happy he's growing up, of course. Growing up is a privilege, and I always want to acknowledge that. But it was just a shock. Like, my role changed in his life when he turned like 5, honestly. He grew up a lot in that year, and I feel like I've slowly shifted. Like, I used to be his playmate, and now I'm kind of I'm his caregiver. I'm obviously there to nurture him and love him. I read him stories. We do play blocks together. We color together. We do all these things together. But the thing is, I don't want to whip out my phone and take a video if we're spending time together, because it doesn't happen as often as it used to. Whereas Rose is literally my she's like attached to me. She's like my third arm. So that's why she's in all my videos. I can't get her away from me, guys. She's obsessed with me, okay? She's still in the phase where she's obsessed, and I do feel like she is going to she's gonna want to be around me longer than Jay did, because she's a girl and she's gonna want to get her nails done and go shopping, and she's gonna have different interests. But Jay loves boy things and man things, and because Sean is laid off, he's home every day, so they do their own thing. And that's another thing about the 4-year age gap, is I have to sacrifice being all together because somebody has to watch Rose so Jay can do fun things. Like, I'm not going to prevent him from going to do things that 6-year-olds can do just because Rose can't do that too. I want him to have fun, even if that means I can't be there all the time. So I sacrifice my time with him, and I watch Rose so he can go do fun things with Sean, and obviously vice versa. I take him to do things too. I'm just not going to film every moment with him because he's also at the point where he probably would get annoyed. Like, Rose doesn't know what's going on, whereas Jay would be like, why are you always like taking videos of me, you know? He's never done that because I can read the room. Like, I'm not gonna whip out my phone when we're having a genuine moment, right? So yeah, I guess it's just something I didn't realize when you have a little boy, that they gotta become a man at some point. And not that he's a man right now, but he is learning how to be one. And that typically doesn't involve me being around. So, yep, that's a hard pill to swallow, guys. Okay, so this is like really random, but I keep seeing this thing that's been pissing me off. Every 5 seconds, I'll go on Facebook, which why the fuck am I going on Facebook anyway? Like, what are you, 50, Julie? But I do, and I scroll, and I keep seeing things like, you're in the good old days, and if you have little kids, you need to enjoy it. You're in the good old days. Like, soak up every single moment because they're not going to be little forever, and they're going to have their own family someday. And I just feel, first of all, it pisses me off because doesn't that defeat the entire purpose? Like, you're thinking of the future instead of the present moment. And, you know, I've referenced that TED Talk about how to train your brain. And one major thing that he talks about in that video is they did a study on unhappy people and happy people. And they pretty much found that the key factor in the happy people was they are living in the moment. They're in the present. I think that they're wording this wrong because the only thing you can do is live in the present moment. You don't have to be happy in the present moment, because I think back to the best times of my life, and I didn't know I was in the best times of my life, and that's the whole point, is you don't know. The only reason that you can look back and think, wow, that was such a good time in my life, is because it's relative to the rest of your life, right? It needs to be in context, and it also comes with experience and wisdom in growing up, and you just don't realize it. And if you're so focused on obsessing over, I need to enjoy this moment, then you're not gonna just feel. Even if you're sad, you're happy, just feel all the things. You don't have to feel this immense pressure to enjoy and be happy every second. Of course, think positive. I think that's a better thing to say, but to say you need to enjoy every fucking second of being a parent is just pissing me off. And I just think it's putting this pressure on people, and they're not living in the present moment because they're thinking, my kid's gonna grow up and I need to enjoy this, and I need to let them sleep in my bed because they're gonna have a wife, and I don't even know. I just feel like it just gets so crazy with the shit that people say. And I'm like, just live, just fucking live in the moment. It doesn't matter if you're sad, happy, just live. And I think that true appreciation often just comes in hindsight, and there's nothing you can do about that, because like I said, it has to be in context with other things in your life and other things in your brain that you can't unlock, or you can't access them until time passes. Did that make any sense? I don't know. I don't know, but I've been trying to find the words to say that for a long time because I couldn't explain why it made me so mad, but you'll never hear me out here saying, enjoy this moment. I just think that's cringy too, honestly. All right, well, I think that covers it, guys. I feel like I truly have like the best followers and supporters ever. So thank you guys for listening, and let me know what I should talk about next week. If we want Sean here next week. Any thoughts, feedback is always appreciated. If there's any guests that live in New England or something, leave them down below. Maybe we can get them on here in my basement on my couch. How amazing would that be?